My name's Chris Phillip.
My name is Paul Anderson.
My name is Mark Boyd.
Hello, my name is Derek Combs, and I listen to the Blue Army podcast.
My name is Matty Robson, and you're listening to the Blue Army podcast.
Yeah, long day. Obviously, I was doing the food for tonight's game at Fox's.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had one day to do it all in, so it was curry night. So you get in at 10 in the morning, you put your curries on, and you've got like until 6 o'clock to broth.
Yeah.
Everything seemed to have gone down well. I did a Cape Town chicken curry in honour of old Dean Furman. So hopefully he appreciated that. If he never heard of it, probably. But hopefully he's appreciated that, man. Do you not fancy the game tonight then? You're not a Johnson's Painthead?
I'm not a Johnson's Painthead, no. I think you've kind of discussed this with me and Liam Denwood before, and I think both of us have similar feelings. And both of us don't attend the games. Which,
yeah, true.
Sometimes I feel like it is a shame to not be attending a game, but...
Well, like, obviously, if I wasn't getting in for free, I don't think I would have gone. But there's a little bit of news about the game, obviously, because it's just happened as we're kind of recording. The game's just finished. So we'll dive into the episode and we'll maybe cover the Johnson's Pain just a little bit, because the attendance did impress me, to be honest, today. The attendance did impress me, but we'll go into details in a minute. It's absolutely lovely to have you back. Just me and you today. I've got a couple of voice notes from the old Denny. He's in Ireland this week, but he's been nice enough to give us a match report and a man of the match. So, I mean, obviously we'll get to hear his views, and it'll be like he's in the room with us. When you left us a voice note last time, it was the highlight of the show, mate. We enjoyed listening to that. It was an absolute pleasure. Just gonna cue that up on my phone now. Yeah, there it is. So that'll be ready to go.
Voice note. Excellent.
yeah. It got used. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, in a hotel in Manchester.
That's it. That was the highlight of the show. The show title was almost called Episode 81. Will's in a hotel in Manchester. That's how much we enjoyed your voice note, mate. That's how much we enjoyed it. But obviously we've got Liam's to look forward to today. So when we get there, we'll get there. But bloody hell, we've managed to get a fair bit of a preamble out of this, considering how tired. Maybe it's because we are tired. Maybe it's because we're recording late. Yeah, maybe it's because we're recording a bit later than usual and we're a bit tired. We're just going to sort of like have a little ramble. But anyway, we're here. We've put the effort in to make the show. So let's kick things off, eh?
Yeah, go on.
Maras, how's it gone? And welcome back to the Blue Army podcast. This is, of course, episode 82. And I am buzzing to be talking to the other half of the Cumbrian Brain Trust. That's right, the man you've all been missing. Wills is back. Wills,
hello. Yes, great to be back.
We've already both said we're a bit tired. We're recording this one a bit later in the day. Mic problems, but mate, it's lovely to have you back. Obviously, Liam's away. It's just going to be me and you this week. Next week, I think things are going to get back to normal, and it'll be the trio. But there's also some guests being lined up for the next month. There's a band that want to come in and have a crack with us. They're lifelong Carlisle fans. That should be the portion of the show that everybody
lifelong
looks forward
Carlisle
to.
Fans. Yeah.
There's a band that might be coming on in the next coming weeks, and there's also the potential of a footballer coming on who was playing at Carlisle United only just last season. Now, obviously, I've been burnt before, and I don't want to mention any names. I don't want to reveal too much, but if this comes off, mate, this is going to be quite the coup for our podcast, and it should be quite the interview. Anyway, mate, there's this one thing we need to do to really get the show kicked off properly. It's everybody's favourite feature. It's time for the Blue Army podcast Joke of the Week. Is he having a laugh? I think he's trying to. It's the Blue Army podcast Joke of the Week.
Ooh.
Get in. Here we go, mate. Right, here we go. What did one toilet say to the other?
I don't know. What did one toilet say to the other?
You're looking a little bit flushed. Oh, It's late, man. Leave me alone. I didn't have that long to find a joke. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. Stay out the comment section, you little rats. There's no need for it. I know it wasn't a good joke. I don't have enough time. I didn't have enough time this week. I can only apologise. But there it is, the joke of the week this week. Much toilet humour this week. We'll plough into the news, mate. The news this week wasn't exactly massive. There wasn't lots of it, but what there was quite interesting. Paul Simpson came out on the press to say that we have had a couple of bids and a couple of inquiries made for a few of the Carlisle United squad. Now, obviously, with the injuries that we've had, Simo has been forced into a little bit of recruitment along the back line, and there is going to have to be a little bit of balance in the books. Wills, with that being said, when you look at the contracts at Carlisle United, the players that are in the squad at the moment, who would you be happy to let go, but be realistic in the terms that they have to bring in some money?
I don't know, because it's hard to think who in the squad would.
It's hard to think. Sorry, you were saying it's hard to think who's in the squad. Can you hear us?
Yeah, it's hard to think who's in the squad who would actually bring in some money for us. Hello? Can you not hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, you can. Yes, it's hard to think who in the squad we've got who could actually bring in some money, but I suppose like Amari Patrick's the only one that I can think of. We've got other players who are good players, but whether they're players who someone's prepared to actually, we're kind of like on the verge of a decent squad now, it seems, and you don't. The cost to letting an important player go could be more to us than what they'll actually bring in if we sell them.
Yeah, I mean, it's a delicate balance, isn't it? I do have to admit, I mean, I've obviously done my own little bit of thought about the subject, and I've kind of gone around the squad about like who's actually an asset that can bring in some money, who's going to be maybe just somebody that we're trying to get rid of the wages of and stuff like that. And there's two names that come to the top of the list. And when I mention these two names, I'm not saying I want to get rid of them. I'm not saying that. I'm just playing the devil's advocate, and I'm saying if Carlisle do need to sell somebody to bring in a bit of money and the least amount that it's going to upset the squad. I mean, one of which is Callum Guy. He's got the time of his contract left over. He's still got a reputation that carries him through a little bit, I think, because of that. What happened on the beach, he was getting lots of assists. He was one of the best passing midfielders in the division at the time in terms of pass completion. And I think you could probably flirt with somebody in the conference that's got a bit of money in the back pocket and probably get a couple of £1,000 for a pay like Callum Guy. And if he's he's got a young family. You've got to consider that. If someone's going to come in for him and offer him more money than what he's getting paid now, it probably won't be that hard for him to score. Thanks very much, Carlisle, but I'll see you later kind of vibe, because there is a lot of competition in those central midfield places, and there's a lot of popularity in the central midfield. Like Gibson's a really popular player. Moxon's a really popular player. Jamie Devitt's a really popular player. Maybe he feels a bit neglected. Maybe he's not feeling the love of the fans that he's maybe felt. Maybe the fans are getting to the end of the sort of patience with him now. He's not taking the free kicks and the corners. He doesn't really have as much to do on the pitch. And now the captaincy is also gone from him. It might be one of those things. Like I said, he's a good enough player to bring in a couple of £1,000. Now, the other person is probably, arguably, the most valuable asset that we do have at the club. And under no circumstances would I want to let him go. Yeah. But if there was a process to sort of like balance the books a little bit, I think Jack Armour could really bring in a decent transfer. He's still only 20, 21 years old. He's played week in, week out for 2.5 seasons now. He comes from a good training background, and I just feel like he could probably bring in 6 figures with a sell-on clause potentially kind of vibe. But I wouldn't want to let him go because there hasn't been a lot of cover in that left back position. I did watch the first half of the match tonight. Taylor Charters did really well at left back, and obviously he did really well with Gateshead at left back, and Joel Senior coming back can play right and left. So maybe if Armour went, it wouldn't be as bad as what people think, and it would bring in a large transfer kitty. Will, to stir the pot a little bit more, if you had to put a valuation on Jack Armour, just an estimation, what would you say his worth is in football?
I'm gonna say 300,000.
Oh yeah, I think that's a good amount of money to be asking for somebody with plenty of time left on his contract. Like, yeah, that's decent. And a left-sided player, yeah, that's probably fair. I'll probably go for that kind of like $250,000 kind of area with add-ons kind of vibe. But yeah, I have to agree with you there. They're the kind of players that I'd consider valuable assets enough to sort of like balance the books if it came to that. In other news, my friend, Rochdale have fired and hired managers this week. The new manager coming in is a man called Jim Bentley. Obviously, one of the favourites for the job was Chris Beach. Rochdale are Carlisle United's next opponents. Does this kind of put you in the that they've got a new manager, they're going to be up for it next week kind of mindset?
Yeah, I mean, Rochdale also had some kind of good news this week relating to their ownership issues, where there was some weird thing last season with a hostile takeover, and they were going to end up owned by someone they want to, and they've settled a legal case, which has apparently drawn a line under that whole strange story. So I don't know if they're kind of like in an onwards and upwards kind of mood now. They seem to have been kind of down in the dumps for most of the last sort of like 3 or 4 seasons. But, like when Swindon had that change of ownership and suddenly it was like they were a different club. So, yeah, you don't know, like we're going to come up against a different Rochdale in terms of how they play with Jim Bentley managing them. Are we going to come up against a more sort of like a positive G'd up Rochdale? Is their attendance going to be up? Because they've had quite low attendances sort of over the last few seasons. But is this the sort of thing that's going to bring in a bumper crowd for them?
Yeah, I mean, I always get worried when you're playing against a team with a new manager in charge, because it just seems to be the way it goes, the rub of the grass, that the team with a new manager in charge go out there and they manage to win the game 9 times out of 10. But hopefully Jim Bentley hasn't quite had enough time with his squad and maybe gets it wrong on the day approaching the match, and we've got a good enough squad to beat Rochdale on paper. So unless it's going to be some crazy kind of team speech that this Jim Bentley can produce, I'm still thinking that Carlisle are going to win that game. But yeah, that's the kind of news from around the league in terms of how it affects us going into next weekend. The Lone Watch, there's been some developments for a couple of players, not so much for other people. Max Gillespie seems to be getting himself into the Annans setup more regularly and starting more games. In fact, he started the game in the Scottish Cup tonight against Aberdeen, and they took Aberdeen to extra time. I'm not sure if it's finished yet. It was 3-1 the last time I looked at it to Aberdeen, unfortunately. Once again, Swinglehurst scoring the goal, another ex-Carlisle player scoring a goal for Annan. And the Annan manager, Peter Murphy, has been highly rated by the Aberdeen manager. I forget his name. And the Aberdeen manager is basically suggesting that Peter Murphy should be started getting earmarked for better jobs. I mean, he's not having the best of seasons over there so far. And we're going a little bit off topic, to be honest. We'll bring things back to Max. It's great in terms of his development to be playing against a top draw team in the Scottish Cup, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, the teams at the top of the Scottish League are good enough. What we say, like Championship level. Some of the, obviously Celtic and Rangers are different, but the Aberdeens and stuff.
I think they used to be. No, I think they used to be. Like, don't get me wrong. Like Celtic back in the day, when you're talking about players like Larson, Sutton, Hartson, Thompson, Nakamura, like players like that. That's a Premier League squad. But I don't think they've been that standard for a very long time, and neither have Rangers.
Yeah, well, I guess maybe it was the whole Rangers getting kicked down to League 3 there, and Celtic having no competition. Maybe that's
I think most Scottish teams would struggle in the Championship. I'm not saying they wouldn't survive. I'm just saying most Scottish teams would struggle in the Championship.
Anyway, good experience though for who is it we actually got on loan at Annan?
Max Gillespie. Yeah, it's Max Gillespie. Yeah, he's playing a lot of centre-back apparently as well. He was brought in to sort of be a left-sided player. He seems to have found a bit of a hole in the centre-back position. So maybe there's some injuries over there at Annan that have led to him playing alongside Swinglehurst in the back two as a centre-back. But I mean, there we go. Max is getting some first-team football. And somebody else that's out on loan who is also getting some first-team football is Lewis Bell. But unfortunately, Lewis Bell continues to be on the losing end of results. Gretna 2008 lost against a team called Civil Service Strollers by 3 goals to 1. I mean, this is the Scottish Lowland League. It is, right? They haven't even got a name.
Service Strollers.
It's not a name. It's a pub. It's a pub team.
A load of accountants.
And this is the week after they got absolutely demolished by a Celtic reserve team in the same kind of league. And I mean, it does just hammer home the level of football that Lewis Bell is stuck in right now. It's good that he's getting first team football, but it's such a low standard of football, mate. Like, is there any development in it for him, really, to be outside?
I don't know. I mean, like, they've sent him to Gretna, presumably because it's really close by. But yeah, it's not the Gretna. It's not even the Gretna pre Brooks Malson and them getting into the league, because then they were kind of like a competitive non-league team that kind of got into the league. But it's now just a sort of it seems like the restarted team is very much kind of like a village team, and it's that kind of level. So
yeah, I don't know how the sort of Scottish lowland divisions work and stuff. I don't think there is
nobody does.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a way into the Scottish League from that.
There is now, yeah. I don't know about from that league, but I mean, for a long time there was no automatic promotion or relegation at the bottom of the Scottish League, but that's been going. So there is a way, but I think
can't imagine Gretna in 2008 getting anywhere near it anytime soon.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of non-league teams in Scotland, and only one place at the bottom of the league that they can kind of get promoted into. So it's, it's kind of like a long way off most teams actually ever getting into the league, I think. There's a really good YouTuber that talks a lot about Scottish football, and he's actually English.
Oh yeah, I know that guy. He's done Carlisle videos before on YouTube.
Yeah,
didn't he do it? He did a video on YouTube about like when Michael Knighton was buying Carlisle. One of his ambitions was to get Carlisle relegated on purpose and then push them into the Scottish League rather than take them down into the National League. That sounds like madness, mate. Absolute madness.
He wants to buy Man U now, so good luck again.
He wants to crowdfund a Man United takeover.
The Man U fans are excited about it because obviously they hate Glazer and they have no idea what Michael Knighton's about. So.
Surely they can find someone else, man. Surely they can find someone else. I don't know. I'm sure Michael Knighton's book never sold enough copies for him to buy Manchester United. Like,
Harry's together a consortium.
Oh Jesus! I wonder who's friends with Michael Knighton. Jesus! Imagine Michael Knighton's friends, the sort of people that are willing to loan Michael Knighton money. Imagine having dinner with them. What kind of people are those, mate? What kind of people are those? Oh dear. The last man on our loan watch is, of course, young Sam Fishburn, who continues his goal drought, unfortunately. He came off the bench twice over the week, once on the weekend, one during the week, and only being able to help his team to 2 draws, not being able to get on the end of anything. In the last game, he came off the bench to replace Lewis McNall, who is absolutely on fire for Blythe Spartans, Will. And I've spoken to Liam Denwood about it a little bit last week, and we couldn't necessarily figure out what Sam is supposed to do when the person who you're competing with is scoring week in, week out. What can you do to get in that? Doesn't like if you're scoring week in, week out, you can turn up to training with a cigar in your mouth and you'll probably still get played next weekend because you're scoring goals, mate. And that's the most valuable commodity in football. What can Sam Fishburn do to force himself into that team when this Lewis McNall guy is just scoring for fun?
I mean, it's difficult because, McNall, I presume McNall's kind of a contracted player for them as well. So they're not going to want to risk his happiness at being at the club and everything like that for a lone player. So it might be one of those where it's kind of the loan hasn't worked out simply because Blythe Spartans have turned out to have a contracted player in his position who's on form, and for reasons that are understandable if you're a Blythe Spartans fan, Sam Fishburn's not going to get a look in. He might, because, the goals might dry up. I don't want to wish it on anyone. There might be an injury that lets kind of Fishburn in. So, presumably we can recall this loan at any time. Blythe Spartans, if they're naming Fishburn on the bench, they're probably not going to have a big squad themselves because they're just a small team. So they probably don't want it recalled because they probably still want to have the cover. But maybe there's somewhere better he can go.
Yeah, do you think that's the solution, mate? Is to maybe bring Sam back and send him somewhere else? Do you think he probably could have had an opportunity to have played tonight if he was a part of the squad?
Yeah, we discussed the level that Blythe Spartans were at before already when it was announced that was where he was going. But we maybe thought that even then that he could be at a better level than that. So. We've had players loaned to us before who then haven't got a look in because there are players ahead of them. And it's a similar thing. This is a situation where we're the big club and we want our player to be playing football. They have no obligation to play him. But unlike with the loans that are made to us from bigger clubs, we can end the loan, I think, probably at any time. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I think also I don't think this is going to do Sam's mentality any good to be sitting on the bench down there when he could just be sitting on the bench up here. It's not going to do his stock any good as in terms of value as a footballer either to be sitting on the bench at that level when you could be sitting on the bench at this level. Obviously, nobody wants to be sat on the bench. But anyway, that's the end of the loan watch for this week. We're all caught up on loans. Injury news. There's no fresh injuries. Nobody's been injured. Obviously, we've got long-term injuries to Brennan Dickinson. Toby Show Silver's still got 4 to 3 weeks left to go. Joel Senior's still out for maybe a month or two. Things seem to be a bit sketchy about that still in terms of his recovery coming back. But obviously, we've been boosted by people coming back, like Ryan Edmondson's been reported as being fit, but hasn't played a game yet. Taylor Charters is fit, and he was a part of the squad against the Manchester under-21s tonight. And also Morgan Feeney was on the bench against Gillingham and started tonight against the Manchester United under-21s. And all that is backed up by Paul Huntington being slightly ahead of schedule and starting the game against Gillingham. So yeah, there's no fresh injury concerns. Many people coming back from injury. The squad is looking nice and healthy. Will, did we maybe act a little bit too quickly in the loan market, bringing in players like Jack Scretton and Duncan Idahan? Are these lads just going to get the rough end of the sponge? And like we've been saying about Sam Fishburne, they're just not going to get the minutes under the belt? Or is there a chance for them?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Stratton seems to still be getting chances. I mean, I say still because Idahan's only just arrived, so I can't say that he isn't getting chances yet because he's only just arrived. But you kind of, especially you look at our defense now and Feeney back. I don't know how much longer Barkley's out for, but
sorry, yeah, Barkley's still out for I think 5 weeks. 5 weeks.
About 5 weeks, not a huge amount of time.
It was 6 to 8 weeks. Now obviously it's gone down to 5.
Yeah, it's difficult to see what the need for Idahan is specifically. Up front, there might be more of a chance for Stratton. There aren't as many players going for those positions, and we haven't really been, we haven't been scoring loads of goals. Dennis, obviously, but we're still kind of waiting on Edmondson to get a league goal, Patrick to get a goal. Who else that might have scored? Well, I suppose Gibson hasn't scored, but he has assisted. So,
yeah, Gibson's contributions to the games have been quite big. And mate, let's just dive into the match report. And as we always do when we dive into the match report, I'll give you Carlisle United's starting lineup for the game against Gillingham, which had Hoyley in net, Back, Whelan, Huntington, Mellish, and Armour at the back five, with Gibson, Guy, Moxon in the midfield, Dennis and Patrick up front. Now, obviously, the defensive line has been changing quite a lot over the last couple of weeks because of injuries. Not left back, not right back, but the central three. Other than that, we've been quite consistent going forward. Do you think Paul Simpson's the sort of manager that once he's found his strongest 11, or what in his opinion is his strongest 11, he runs that week in, week out? And in his opinion, do you think that midfield three is his best midfield three?
Yeah, I think so. But I think Harris is still kind of returning to fitness. So he's maybe still in the, I mean, because obviously Harris is the player we've given a 3-year contract to and paid money for. So he's still kind of somewhere in the back of Simo's mind, and maybe he's just kind of not yet in full consideration to start games because of the injury. But he may well be starting a game. But it depends how the others do. He may just struggle to get in. I don't think Paul Simpson would make a change just for the sake of it because he's got a player coming back. But
yeah, that's the point. That's the point. Yeah, that's the point. Is that Simo's not that kind of manager? Yeah,
but if they underperform in a game, or I mean, I'm sure that he potentially would if he were coming up against an opposition where he felt that Harris's qualities were specifically what's needed. I don't think he'd stubbornly stick to the same 11 no matter what either. So there probably is still chances for that 4 to compete for 3 spots.
I mean, I'd say going into a game, the only person that you're guaranteed to be starting a game right now in the league is Dennis and Hoyley, Armour and Finn back. They're guaranteed starters. Everyone else is kind of a little bit interchangeable, because I think Corey Whelan's actually done himself a really good service after being called into the squad for the last couple of games, and he might have pushed himself up that pecking order a little bit, and now is in contention to be a part of that defensive three, because we all know it's Huntington, Feeney, and someone else, and at the moment it's Mellish, and he's justified himself being in the squad, and obviously in this game, he managed to score the winning goal, which you're not going to take that person out of the squad. But if Whelan's a good defender and Mellish, looks a bit keen to get forwards, and you're happy to have him in the box a bit more regularly, then maybe Mellish goes into the midfield and someone gets dropped for the midfield, and Whelan ends up being a part of that defensive line.
Let's go and walk about again.
Well, this is the thing. This is the thing as well, because like in the Gillingham game, now we're talking about the Gillingham game. Like what I noticed a lot is that Mellish just kind of, when Carlisle have the ball, Mellish just goes wherever he wants to go. Sometimes he's backing up the defensive left. Sometimes he's backing up the defensive right. Maybe he's not going where he wants to go. Maybe the game plan is when Carlisle United have the ball, you have to be near it, basically. Yeah. So if the ball goes down the left channel, you need to support the left channel. If the ball goes down the right channel, you need to be supporting the right channel. But the idea is, when Carlisle United have the ball, Mellish needs to get his ass closer to the ball to be an option.
Yeah, well, he's definitely got the stamina to do that. So
yeah,
it's kind of good to make use of that.
That seems to be the sort of game plan. And I really did see it in that game. In the first half, they were right up the end that I was in the paddock, and you could see Mellish going down the left and supporting Armour, and I was like, what are you doing going down the left? Like, down the right, maybe, but like, I don't think he'd ever go down the left, but there he was, mate. He was down the left, and he was backing up Armour, and then passing the ball into the midfield, or, looking for a sort of like cross himself, but he's not a left footer, it's one of those kind of to the back post curler kind of balls, but still, he's offering the options, and that seems to be the game plan, is that we do play with a back five, but when we have the ball, somebody's going forward to give that man options. And Mellish has done a cracking job, and obviously the goal is evident of that. I mean, shall we? We'll pretty much the game itself, mate, and we'll go into Liam Denwood's reaction as well, and we'll listen to that, and we'll react to Liam Denwood's reaction. The first half was boring. It was fucking boring, mate. It was just dreadful. I mean, they couldn't string together 5 passes, and neither could the opposition, thankfully. But it was just a drudging game of football. Patrick O'Mari was just not having any luck, and neither was Gibson, neither was Moxon. And Moxon looked like he was carrying a little bit of a knock as well, so not to the best of his standards. And I mean, Dennis was keen. And in the first half, he shot one from about 25 yards out, and he went for it, but nothing solid, nothing great. No really good chances in the first half. What is that, Will? When a team just doesn't get like the basics right for a full 45 minutes, like Simo isn't the sort of manager to go sick on the sideline. That was what Dennis Booth was for. Do we need that guy back? Do we need the sort of person that Simo can look at and go, get these fucking lads working,
Yeah, maybe. Because we don't really have anyone who's going to kind of like ball and shout from the sidelines. I didn't see it myself, so I don't know if the cause of that is, as you say, kind of like just the players seemed like they weren't really, like the heads weren't really in it. I guess that's what that sounds like. So I mean, I saw the highlights. It's saying something that one of the highlights was a defensive header that almost, but actually didn't really score an own goal.
Yeah, I mean, it was a poor game, mate. It was a really poor game. Some of the highlights are literally just like a cross that look like a shot going over the back post. Like that's how poor some of the highlights are in the first half. But obviously in the second half, and we didn't have to wait too long into the second half. Sorry, he's getting my stats up. Yeah, we didn't have to wait too long into the second half, just 10 minutes before John Mellish finally broke the deadlock for Carlisle United. And it's evident of what we've been talking about, mate. The game plan seems to be get amongst it, get down the left, get down the right. Now, on this occasion, Gibson was bringing the ball forward. He had a shot that was deflected, poorly cleared by the Gillingham defence, and Gibson managed to get to his own sort of rebound somehow. And a beautiful, cheeky pass through to Jack Armour.
Oh, sorry.
So, I mean, yeah, Gibson played an absolutely... I thought you were just going to compliment Gibson's ball through, to be honest, into Armour. No. It was a lovely ball in.
It was,
very
nice.
Of course. Yeah, very nice technique by Gibson to get the ball into Armour, who played a back heel into the path of Mellish, who still had a lot to do. It just took him 2 touches, though, to get away from the defender, I mean, he could have gone down, maybe, potentially, if he wanted to. It says a lot to his character that he stayed on his feet. And, I mean, the shot was going wide, but it went off the Gillingham defender and just ended up in the back of the net. It's credit to the type of player John Mellish is, that goal. That goal has John Mellish's name written all over it, doesn't it, Will?
Yeah, it's all about persistence and, persistence from the other players as well, like Gibson. And it's good if we score, if these are the sort of goals that we can score in these sort of matches where we just need something to go in to win, then the players are showing that they've got the ability to do that, to persist with those sort of ones where in another game, you might give it up for lost, but you kind of like understand that, especially in this game, maybe this was the crux of Paul Simpson's Paul Simpson's halftime talk, that you're just going to get a half chance, and then you're just going to have to persist with it and turn it into something better, because it might go in, and it's going to, took a bit of a deflection, didn't it? So there's a bit of luck, but it went in because there were players, especially players like John Mellish, who were just kind of like just going to chase this ball and do something with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we said it like maybe on the first or second episode of this season, where we were just talking about the fact that sometimes you need a bit of luck. Like, you just need to be on the right side of the Irish charm, as it were. And we didn't seem to have much of it for the last 2 or 3 seasons. And if you are going to have some success in a season, you do need to have a bit of luck. And there we go. We do get that little bit of luck once again. But obviously, massive credit to John Mellish. For the rest of the second half, Carlisle were just sort of happy to wallow in their poor performance that they did for the first half. But Gillingham didn't do that much to really press Carlisle. Like, no shots in the box, and only able to sort of chip in with a couple of set pieces and a couple of crosses in that didn't really seem to trouble Thomas Hoyley too much. Thomas Hoyley's looking like a very confident goalkeeper recently, and I think Simo will be very happy with the fact that his defensive line kept a clean sheet against Gillingham. That's another really good thing to take away from the game. I mean, I can't really say too much more about the game. Should we listen to Liam Denwood's match reaction? Should we see what that sounds like?
Yeah, absolutely. I've already watched his Blue Army TV. As part of my research, because I watched the highlights, though I need more, so I watched that. So so I know what he thinks about it. So let's see what he says here.
Yeah, maybe we've got like a mini version of what he did on his YouTube. Maybe it's like the highlights. Maybe he's got the full 15 minutes of his YouTube show on here.
Is he gonna put in a little thing to subscribe for more?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't listen to that. It's the same with yours last week. I don't because I want it to be my live reaction as well. So I haven't listened to them. So I've had a really awkward sort of chat. And it's just sort of I'm not going to listen to this until I do the show, and then just a thumbs up. And we had to sort of kill our own conversation there and then, because obviously you wanted to talk about the game, but I've been saving it for this. But here we go. It's Liam Denwood from Blue Army TV, which is on YouTube. And he might tell you to like and subscribe. I'll tell you to like and subscribe. Go over and like and subscribe. Here we go. This is match reaction.
Hello, Wills and Liam.
Hey!
I'm going to give my match reaction from the game against Gillingham today, and I've got to say, although we got the 3 points, I didn't think it was our strongest performance. I definitely think we played better in some of the draws we had. The big negative for me is Christian Dennis losing his goal scoring streak, which I was enjoying seeing him break some records. But yeah, we're going to be judged on the 3 points at the end of the day, and we did get that. So there aren't that many negatives. That's all I've really got to say today. There wasn't that many talking points coming from the game today. But 3 points is all that matters in the end, and I'm happy with that.
I'll tell you what, man, he's not wrong. Wrong.
That's not all he had to say, though. He managed to draw out a good 6 minutes of it on his.
To be fair, yeah, you can go out if you want to know what Liam really felt about.
Yeah, that's an abridged version of his, because he speaks a bit more about kind of our defence. And the options that we've got in defence, how well Huntington played, and also the fact that he's scoring a goal a game. like one goal every game, though.
Yeah, it's a minor achievement, but it's an achievement. I mean, he is right, though, isn't he? We both kind of like talked about it a little bit there. At the end of the day, what's really important is the 3 points and the clean sheet.
Yeah. We're not gonna play brilliantly every week, but teams that do well have other ways of winning. And just like we talked about with the persistence over the goal, if that's something that we can kind of do regularly when we're not playing that well, and admittedly we'll come up against a Gillingham team who also weren't playing very well. So, but if that's something that we can do regularly in these sort of games, then we're kind of going around turning draws into wins, which is 2 points every time you do it.
Well, that's the difference, man, between playoffs and promotion and everything else. Wins, 3 points, draws don't get you there in the end, man. Like 15 draws a season will see you just outside the playoffs. 15 wins a season will see you just inside the playoffs. And these are the very slim margins that football teams live by at our level of the game. And thank you very much, Mr. Liam Denwood from Blue Army TV on YouTube. You'll be back very soon to give us your man of the match. But me and Wills are going to go first, and we're going to give you our Foxes Features man of the match. Wills, since it's been so long since you've been here to do this, you can go first, buddy. Who's your man of the match for the Gillingham game?
So my man of the match, and since my research on how we played included Liam Denwood's podcast, I feel like I've probably been influenced by him a little bit. So I'm going with John Mellish. I don't know if that's going to be his man of the match, but he does talk up Mellish's performance and obviously the goal. So based on that and the highlights that I've seen, another thing, I'm going to give it to John Mellish. Well, I don't know. He might not have given it to John Mellish. I have another
chapter of Skelly's embarrassing stories. Now he works at Brunton Park. So the Skelly's embarrassing story this week is John Mellish obviously won the Man of the Match award at Brunton Park at Carlisle for the Carlisle game against Gillingham. He won the Man of the Match awards. One of the things you have to do when you win the Man of the Match award is that you get brought into Foxy's restaurant for all the people that were sitting in the boxes, and they present you with like a bottle of champagne, I think it is, in Foxy's restaurant. Then you go over to the sponsors lounge. You pretty much do the same thing in the sponsors lounge, but they give you something else as a Man of the Match award. So you basically go to these two different bars. Anyway, when John Mellish was collecting the Man of the Match award this week, I was downstairs in the office signing out of my shift, and as I was signing out of my shift, I walked back through into the foyer of Fox's restaurant, and John was holding his young child and his Man of the Match award while his missus was trying to take a picture, and I just pretty much burst into the room with just them two in it and me, and I was like, oh, I'm really sorry, crack on, do your own thing. And I just turned around and left the room really embarrassingly, even though they were like, no, come through. And they would have been very aware that the only thing for me to go back to was the office of which I just came from.
So basically walked back into an empty room or a closed room.
But then the gentleman in me took over and realised that I'd been incredibly rude and I should have offered to take a picture of the three of them together, So obviously I burst back into the room about 5 seconds after I just left the room to be like, would you guys like a picture together? I can get a picture of all you guys together if you'd like, which was just sort of like, no, it's fine. You don't have to. So which I had to just slink back for the third time.
Just like close the door bit. Okay, I'll be out when you're done here.
I was literally, I had nothing to do in that office apart from just like wait for them to leave. Oh, dear me, mate. Oh, dear me. But yeah, that's my embarrassing story from Brunton Park this week. It's fun to get this on the podcast every now and again. It's all right. It's a nice little feature. It won't happen every week.
Didn't embarrass himself every week.
No, I don't always embarrass myself.
Sometimes we're playing away.
Why am I so awkward around these players? Do you know what the really funny thing is? Is that John Mellis's missus is a listener to this podcast, and if she's listening to this one, she will now know the person that burst into the room is me. And the next time we see each other around Brunton Park, because obviously she'll go and support John very regularly. Yeah. Maybe there'll be an awkward sort of a bit of eye contact where we.
Wouldn't that be nice? Make it a bit more awkward.
And there's another awkward story for everybody. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Maybe I should just stay away from John Mellis's missus, full stop. Maybe I'll just do that. Maybe I'll just stay away.
If there's a nearby office you can hide in.
Kit room, workout room, physio, cupboard. Kit, cupboard. I reckon I'll be hiding in a lot of the places around Brunton Park just to avoid certain people that I find a bit daunting to meet on some occasions. But anyway, my man of the match awards for the game against Gillingham, and it was an incredibly poor game, but coming out of the game, obviously, we did keep the clean sheet. And in my opinion, the person that contributed to the most to Carlisle United keeping that clean sheet was, in fact, Paul Huntington. He led that back line incredibly well. He was absolutely solid in the air, winning umpteen headers. And there was a reason why Gillingham weren't shooting anywhere near our box. And one of the reasons why is because Paul had that back line very, very, very much organised. I know he got brought off in the 72nd minute. Now I'm looking at it for Feeney, but in my opinion, if Huntington didn't start that game, I don't think we would have won that game. So for me, I'm going to give it to Paul Huntington. Paul, we'll have a listen. I'll get back on my phone again.
Well, Ian Denwood was very complimentary about Huntington himself, so I feel like he's going to give the man of the match to either Mellish or Huntington.
All right, here we go. Let's see what side of the fence he lands on. Oh, it might surprise us. Maybe he'll give it to Hoyley again or something. I think he gave it to Hoyley last week. We'll see. Here we go.
For my man of the match today, I'm probably going to have to go for John Mellish. And for the obvious reason of the goal, it wasn't his finest goal, but it counts all the same. But I think even without the goal, he was probably still our man of the match.
Man of the match today.
Even without the goal.
John Mellish was putting in were absolutely unreal. Some of the defending, I've questioned John Mellish this season. I a lot of people have, and rightfully so in my opinion. Today showed his and he was a really
exclusives
alongside Paul Huntington. I think
he does.
Having the discipline of Paul Huntington next to him has allowed him to sort of become a really good defender in this last game, and he showed his class. And he's my choice. Thank you.
I mean, I basically just spent 10 minutes before this podcast listening to what Liam Denwood thinks about the game, so pretty good insight into his mind.
We're like the match of the day to his game, aren't we? We just get the highlights of his opinions, but thank you very much. There, he's gone for John Mellish. So there we go. John Mellish claiming 2 man of the matches today, and deservedly so. It was difficult to pick between people. Yeah, Mellish's goal contribution was big. Liam did mention Paul Huntington there. I'm sorry, but the start of that, I love the way that man of the match. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to play it again. I'm going to have to play it again. Are you listening? Oh, God.
For my man of the match today,
man of the match today.
I mean, he just says it like a normal person, doesn't he?
I just think he was really excited to do his man of the match. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, we just won.
I think man of the match today. It's like Cliff Richard guy from Max and Paddy. No, we'll move on. So our audience is too young for that, probably. I don't know. Anyway. Obviously, Manchester United under 21s came to town tonight, and we can see that the final result for that game was indeed 3-1 to the Manchester United under 21s. Jamie Devitt did score a goal for Carlisle United. It's the Johnson's Paint Trophy, mate. But the real news is here for us, because there's no way of you to have been able to watch any of the highlights or anything like that. And I only saw the first half, and then I came running back to be able to record this episode before midnight. So the real takeaway from this for me is the fact that there was nearly 3,500 people at Brunton Park tonight. Yes, 340 of those were Manchester United supporters, and I'm doing air quotes when I say supporters because I reckon about 100 people travelled from Manchester, and the rest of them are just people that live in Carlisle that are Manchester United supporters.
I mean,
But
some of them would have been family of the players because these are kind of like their youth players as well. So I feel like that always accounts for a bit.
yeah, you're probably right. I mean, there you go. There's another like 50 to 30 people, like depending on how many tickets you get for your family in these games. There's probably a load of free tickets involved for this particular cup. It's not the worst result in the world. We don't really care unless we get anywhere near a Wembley. So it's disappointing, but like hopefully Simo shook some hands and maybe made a contact, and maybe there's the player in that reserve squad that you might be able to chat up in January based off a conversation and seeing somebody now. It's one of those games, isn't it?
Now we've got Greg Abbott back.
Away.
Yeah, I mean, now we've got Greg Abbott back. Doesn't he have kind of good contacts at Man U? Wasn't that like a big thing that he was into when he was manager about how good his contacts were with Man U and like James Chester and all that?
We did all right at the time because we had Norwood and Chester, and I think there was a striker as well that we got in from Man United.
We also had Charlie Kangamani.
Right. But like, yeah, you're right. Apparently, but like, obviously, relationships change over the years, and like when you're in the same league as Salford, there's teams in our division that have better contacts to Manchester United than we do. So, yeah, that's the only reason I'd say with the whole Man United situation that might be an issue. But in terms of this tournament and in terms of the result, I don't think you could have really asked for a lot from the team that we put out, apart from getting back up to full fitness. Taylor Charters being a part of the squad. He did look decent at left back in the first half from what I saw. Carlisle United did have some good phases of play. And another thing to take away from the game is that the fact that Omari Patrick has looked a lot better in this game than he looked against Gillingham and he looked against Swindon. I feel like he's been lacking a little bit recently. He's been forced into the squad to play week in, week out because of the injury to Ryan Edmondson. I feel like he would have been given a break in the Gillingham game if Edmondson was fit, or maybe he wouldn't have played, blah, blah, blah. These are all hypotheticals. But yeah, Patrick had a decent game against the Manchester United under-21s. And I feel like that's partly because he knows Edmondson's in contention to come back into the squad on Saturday against Rochdale. Rochdale, my friend, let's do some predictions. Yes, we've spoken about the fact that they've got a new manager coming in, but they are fucking awful. So let's see what you think, Wills. What do you think? Is it going to be enough for them to pull off an upset against us, or do you reckon we've got enough about us to carry on a pretty decent start to the season?
Yeah, I think we're going to win 1-0. Just carry on doing what we're doing. We only need to score one goal a game. If we only concede one goal a game with the occasional two, and most good clean sheets, just keep scoring a goal a game. Yeah,
1-0. I'm going to agree with you for a change. I don't think we've ever agreed on a match prediction. Let's make it, 1-0 is probably a fair result, I'd say. I think if Ryan Edmondson does come back into the team, he might just be a little bit shy of full fitness, and Carlisle's attacking might be lacking a little bit to get like a second or a third goal. But there will be Dennis, there will be Gibson, and there will be Sir Huntington and people from set piece players now that we're just more threatening from every position at the moment. So there's always a goal in us, I think. There's always a goal in us in every game. And I mean, that's right, isn't it? The stats don't lie. We've got that goal per game ratio going for us. So obviously going into next weekend, me and Wills are thinking 1-0. What are you going to say, pal?
Yeah, I would say we're just a bit more clinical, but without being especially creative.
Yeah. I mean, it is clinical. We do look decent, but when I looked at the stats with the Gillingham game, we didn't get that many shots, So hopefully that was just one of those sort of like flash in the pan situations, and we'll get back to producing more chances, and then from more chances we'll end up scoring some more goals. But we do look at better football inside. Yeah,
I mean, we had the Crawley game where we had loads of shots, and that was just looking like we were creating a lot of just not being clinical enough.
True.
But then we become more clinical but less creative. Just keeps averaging out to a goal a game.
That'll do us. I'm happy with that until the end of the season. As long as we keep winning them and keeping clean sheets, that'll do for me. Right, mate, before we say goodbye to everybody, it's time for the final feature of the Blue Army podcast. And that is, of course, On This Day. On this day in August 1994, hundreds of Carlisle United fans missed out on a 2-1 win at the Best Scott Stadium, courtesy of 2 goals from David Reeves, when a lorry loaded of glass overturned on the M6 motorway 2 hours before kickoff. News that Walsall had been beaten lightened the mood as the heavy flow of traffic returned to head back to Cumbria. So, Wills, have you ever been involved in a delayed kickoff? And if so, where were you at?
No.
Oh, fair enough. And there we go.
I can't remember. Yeah, I mean, if I have, then it was only a short delay. I mean, was there a delayed kickoff at Brenton Park last season, but like only by 5 minutes because fans queuing to get in or something like that. But
was it like Simo's first game back at home, maybe?
Maybe, yeah, but nothing proper in terms of. So go on. What about you? I take it you have.
No, I've not had. No, I just don't think it happens that often. So maybe that's why it's written in a book and we don't have stories about it because it just doesn't happen that often.
It might have happened. I can't remember.
Yeah. It's one of those. Like I might have been at that one as well.
Not the sort of thing that you're like. I mean, if you were going to that Walsall game, you probably still remember it now because a lorry load of glass spilled over. But I wouldn't kind of like think, oh yeah, I remember that one time that we were home to Hartlepool in 2004 and kickoff was delayed by half an hour.
Yeah, you're right.
Because,
you wouldn't think of it. You think about the result, if anything. Yeah, you're right. You wouldn't think of it. You wouldn't think of it. But I mean, there we go. I mean, the worst I've ever done is turn up to a game like 20 minutes late or something, like the travelling down. It was the Liverpool game. Like
I Everton, turned up to a game a week early.
Away?
No, home. This was when I was living in Liverpool, so I had to drive up from Liverpool, and it was when I was in, I think it was in first year uni, or no, maybe second, but it was early enough in like the early noughties that I didn't have an easy way to have known otherwise that the game had been postponed because didn't have smartphones. I would have had to kind of like look up on the internet, is this game still on? So like I had it on the calendar, on my fixtures list, it was there, Nottingham Forest, but they'd qualified for the third round of the FA Cup and therefore, they qualified for a round of the FA Cup that meant the fixture was postponed. And I didn't know and drove up to Carlisle.
Oh, well, I imagine you still had a decent coffee somewhere or something.
I think I just drove back. No, I think I did. I did have a coffee somewhere. I parked in town and kind of went for a mooch around, I think.
At least the petrol prices weren't that bad back then.
Yeah,
might have been more of a kick in the teeth.
Tuppence a gallon.
That's what it was back in the day. Tuppence a gallon. You'll never know it.
I think it was 2005. Tuppence a gallon.
You'll never know it. You'll never know it. You'll never know it in your lifetime, kidders. Right, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure doing this episode of the Blue Army podcast with you. I do want to just tell people, it's a little bit of a personal thing for me. I am the new official voice of Target Wrestling for Carlisle for their YouTube account. So going forward, I'll be doing the commentary for Target Wrestling in Carlisle. And I would really appreciate it if anybody listening to this right at the end of the podcast could go over to YouTube, type in One Man Commentary Machine and give me a subscribe or a follow. That'll be really appreciated. And if you're in a subscribe and a follow mood, don't forget to do it for the Blue Army podcast while you're there on YouTube. And of course, don't forget about our links here on the Blue Army Podcast. Don't forget to follow us, leave us a comment, leave us a rating. It's always appreciated and it's always read. And Will, something else that's always appreciated is your company here on the Blue Army Podcast. It's been an absolute bloody pleasure to talk to you. It feels like it's been a while. There's only one thing left for us to say, my friend, and that is, of course, bye for now.
Hurrah.